Welcome to A Legacy of History Project, Volume 3. My name is Carrie Thorne, and this is
Andrew Thomas
and
Jody Lavoie.
Today, October 24th, 2011, we will be interviewing Frank Cole at the Cambridge Narrows Regional Library. Our hopes are that you will enjoy listening to our interview with Frank.
Welcome, Frank Cole. Cambridge Narrows Community School thanks you for participating in A Legacy of History Project. I understand you were born in 1938 and you lived most of your life here in Cambridge Narrows. Can you tell me what it was like growing up in the 1940s?
It was tough. It was tough growing up. And the year after I was born, the war broke out, and you didn't have too much to eat then. You had lots of bread and molasses, had your own milk, on cattle, and we lived there with no father. He was in the war. He joined the war in 1939, and he was there till the war ended, along with three other brothers. Two of them were in the Army, one was in the Navy, and Dad was in the Army, which he'd served as a soldier in the First World War. But it was tough growing up in the 40s. I guess we had our ups and downs, and but the most thing that I could remember really is when Dad coming home on leave. He used to go home what they call farm leave. He'd come home and plant the gardens in the spring, and he'd go back. He'd have maybe 2 to 3 weeks. Then he'd go back, and he was always on guard duty on the prisons. When they captured the prisoners, he guarded them. And in 1944, he bought a new kitchen stove, and it was an Enterprise, and it was bought in the wintertime. And they had to bring it with horse and sled, and there was 2.5, 3 feet of snow for the horses to walk through, hauling this stove on the sled. And it was real good. My younger brother had to set it up when it landed there. He wasn't old enough to be in the Army or anything then. So it was tough in the 1940s, but we survived. There was 13 of us in our family, and we all survived.
Did you live in Cambridge Narrows your whole life?
No, I was born and brought up down in Shannon, about 13 miles down the lake. And but I don't know, I guess I chose Cambridge Narrows as my home in 1957. I bought my place over at the corner.
How many people were in your family?
There's 13, and my older brother passed away when he was about 2.5 weeks old, or hours old, I mean. And then I lost my older sister when she was 16 years old with bone cancer. So that left 11 of us and out of that 11, there's only 3 left now. 2, my younger brother in St. John, and my older sister in Prince Edward Island.
What was school like when you were a boy?
It was nothing like you have now, that's for sure. We had a little school out down in Shannon, and we had one teacher, and the grades from 1 to 9 were taught in that school. And then in the later years, before I was done going to school down there, they moved Bald Hill. They closed the Bald Hill schoolhouse. They closed the Henderson Settlement schoolhouse and moved them all into the Shannon schoolhouse. That put about 32 to 34 people in the school, in one little schoolroom, with one teacher. And it was good. We had a lot of fun going to school, and some hard times. And my first teacher, well, her name was Laura Jones. My last teacher was her daughter, Kathleen McCready. So she married, Robert McCready. He used to be our MLA in Fredericton. And they both were real good teachers. And I kind of wish now that I'd have stayed there at times, and longer than what I did do.
Did you ever get into trouble at school?
Never got in trouble at school. We were too busy having fun.
What was your house like?
House. Wasn't a very big house. It was, I think it was 30 by 30 or something like that, kind of a square house. Yeah, and 2 stories. It wasn't finished upstairs, but we still had to sleep up there. And in the wintertime, you could see the frost on the nails on the inside of the house. But we survived it.
What was the village like when you were young?
When I first came here, there was no village. I came here in 1956, driving truck for fellow across the lake by the name of Levi Ferris, and there was no village then. And then I was married in 1959, and let's see, but they never formed a village till 1966, and we weren't even a local service district then. But they formed a village and then amalgamated Narrows and Cambridge together.
What sort of things did you do in the wintertime?
Oh, we skied, and we had to build our own skis at that time too, back years ago. And used what they called barrel staves and built skis, and we built our own sleds. And we skated out on the lake and did it, and shoveled a lot of snow.
What did you use for transportation to get to go skating and stuff? Did you
walk? We walked morning and night, 1 1/10 miles to school. Walked in the mornings and we walked back home again at night. So winter and summer, storm, no matter what, we went.
What was Christmas like when you were young?
Christmas was something to remember. The only thing we had at Christmas time, like for a treat, was a plate about that big around with an orange onto it, bananas on it, grapes on it, apples on it, and maybe a few odd candies. And that's all we had for a treat. When you were done with that plate, you were done eating your treat. That's all we had. And I always thought there was a Santa Claus until one Christmas. My brother and I were down in the cellar. We had to go down and get some potatoes. And it was at night, and or getting dark. I'd get some potatoes for supper. And my brother went down to hold a flashlight. And there were 2 little hand slids about that long. And they were put under the tree at Christmas time from Santa Claus. So either somebody else bought them or you come early.
Can you tell us how you and your family prepared for Christmas?
Well, Mom did a lot of knitting and for Christmas, and she always knitted the family socks and mittens and stuff for Christmas. And she always prepared the Christmas turkey. Dad would help her some if he was home. Sometimes he wasn't home, but most Christmases he was home. And the younger boys would go get a Christmas tree and stand it up. And after that, it was always trimmed Christmas Eve by the rest of the family, and the younger ones went to school or went to bed. And then Mom always prepared the dinner. And you'll never forget that kind of stuff. And one thing I'll never forget, Dad would never ever smoke, never drank in his life, but he smoked 1 cigarette a year. That's all he ever smoked. After the Christmas dinner was done, the boys would sit around and have their cigarette. He would take that 1 cigarette and smoke it, and that's it. Never touch it again until next Christmas. He had good willpower. And people always visited around Christmas time. Sometimes they'd visit you before Christmas, then again after Christmas. And you just travel from one house to the other, seeing the Christmas trees, and there was always a lunch on the table whenever you went. A cup of tea or a glass of milk, whatever. It was always there. It was good growing up back then. And I think maybe you might have enjoyed it better than what the younger people do now, really. I think we appreciated it more because it was harder to come by. I think that's things that we did.
Are there any highlights in your life that you would like to share with us?
I guess maybe there were two highlights. The day I was married and my first child. But I've had a lot of highlights, and I got to know a lot of people. I run the shop over there, the garage over there, repair shop for 17 years, and I met a lot of people, a lot of nice people. And they could all be classed as highlights, mostly. So, and I think that's about it for the highlights, maybe.
Can you tell us about your wedding?
About my wedding? Oh, it was just a quiet wedding. We were married by Reverend Kellen, the Cody's preacher, and in 1959, September the 26th. And we had our wedding. I think our wedding was the next to last that they had in Narrows Baptist Church. I think there was only one wedding after that, and that was Brian Hathaway, I believe. And then we had a reception in what is known as the Old Orange Hall over here. And my wife and her mother prepared all the reception themselves. And they built my wife's wedding dress, made it. And we had a real good reception, and they had a wedding shower for us down in Shannon and one up here, and we received a lot of nice gifts, real good. And after the wedding, we went back to the house and opened some of the wedding gifts, changed our clothes, and we headed for Nova Scotia. And my wife was working at NBTEL. She was getting $45 a week. I was working for the Department of Transportation, getting 95 cents an hour. She had her paycheck plus her holiday pay, and I had a paycheck from DOT. And I had a 49 Chevy. We toured Nova Scotia, down around through Dartmouth, Halifax, and all different places. Seen a lot of scenery because I had a brother living down there, and she had an uncle living down there. So we kind of tagged around with them. But my brother was in the Navy at that time. And we come back home, and we still have some money left out of our paychecks.
Can you tell me about your family?
Yeah, there was 13 of us in the family. As I said before, I lost a brother and a sister. And my mom and dad both were from England. Mom was from Birmingham, Dad was from Bristol. And I never ever did know my grandparents. They come out here. Mom was 12 years old when she came out here, and Dad was 15 years old. And they both landed at the old Corsa farm that used to be over in Queenstown. They called it the Corsa farm, and that's where all the immigrants landed, was there. Then they were left there, and they come to McCready's in Shannon. And that's where they first met was at the Corsa farm, and then they both were accepted at McCready's farm. And my brothers, they get all, some went to Nova Scotia, some went to Ontario, some to Montreal, some to St. John, and my sisters were all over the place. Yes, but as I said, I only have a brother and a sister left now. So I'm going to see my sister this week.
What was your mother and father's name and your sister and brother that's still living?
Mom's name was, her maiden name was Dorothy Ellis, Dorothy Elizabeth Ellis. And Dad was Charles Henry Cole. and I was named after my dad. And my younger brother, he's Robert Jellicoe. He lives in St. John. And my sister Beatrice, she's Mrs. Burrell. She lives in Summerside, PEI. And I had a sister named after my mom. So I guess that's about all I can tell you for ages and stuff like that.
Can you tell us about when you purchased your home and how you started your business?
Yeah, I purchased my home in 1957. I bought it from Leslie Cromwell. He run the store here at the Narrows, and I guess he got it from Bill McRae. But anyway, we got to talking one day, I was sitting there in the store talking, and I said, what would you ask for that place, the house and the garage and the property? He said, oh, he always smoked a pipe and hanging on, oh, guess I'd have to have $1,500. And I said, good enough, I'll buy it. So that's what I paid for it then, but it's worth a lot more than that now. I've built a piece on and fixed it up quite a lot, and foundations and everything, but right then it was a cheap home, but and he gave me time to pay for it in, $25 a month when I bought it. Now for to open up the business, it's quite a long story, and it back years ago there was a lady by the name of Mrs. Purdy. She owned the Purdy Foundation down the lake down here. And she was over at living over at the Micmac trailer park. And she had skidoos. So she got me to go over and look after the skidoos and rent them out for her and repair them whenever they needed repairing. So anyway, I did that for a couple of years. And one day she called me on the phone. She said, would you come on over? I need a lift with a deep freeze. So I went over and helped move the deep freeze. And she said, when you're done there, I want to talk to you. So I done that, and so we sat down, had a cup of tea. She said, did you ever think about opening a garage? She said, you got the building? I said, yeah, I got the building. I haven't got the money. She said, that's not what I asked you. She said, are you ever interested in opening it? And I said, well, it would be good. I'd already worked in St. John at mechanic work for 4.5 years. So I said, well, I'll have to think about it. So it went on for a week or two, and the phone rang again. She called me, come on over. So I don't know, and she said, have you thought any more about opening the garage? And I said, well, yes, but I said, I haven't got the money. You go get whatever you need and bring the bills to me. And that's how I got started. I went around, I shopped around in St. John, I bought some service station equipment in St. John, and tire changers and air compressors. So anyway, and she had a half